Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Matt Mikalatos, for those who don't know, the author of the young adult fantasy novel, The Crescent Stone. And today I'm so pleased to say that we have my new friend, Jenn Reese, with us, author of A Game of Fox and Squirrels. Welcome, Jenn.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
And oh, my pleasure. And we have someone who's so excited. He has been waiting for a couple minutes here. Patrick Fogarty says, "I'm early. Woo, so excited." I'm excited too, Patrick. I'm glad you're excited. And we'll usually have people shouting out for a few minutes that they've arrived. I have my book here, my copy. There it is. You can see a little better. I love the foil stamping on there. It's amazing.
Yes.
I was telling Jenn before we started, the design of this book is so amazing. Like, there's illustrations all over the place, like in the chapter. And there's actual pictures in here a couple places too. Let's see if I can find one.
One of my favorite things in the whole book is the fact that there's a little squirrel on the spine.
A little squirrel. I love that. I love on the end page here, or on the, I forget what the dust jacket, the little squirrel with the
suit of armor. That's great.
So cute. Let's see. Here we go. The Scales family is here. They say, "Hi, the Scales family is back. This sounds fun." Got couple little emoji there.
Welcome.
So yeah, the Scales family watches every day, but on Thursdays they have another author they go hang out with. So I like to tease them on Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, Scales family.
They keep coming back. That's the important thing.
That's right. They're very faithful. Jenn, tell us a little bit about your writer's life. How'd you get into the seedy underbelly of the writing world?
Well, I have the same story, I think, as many of us, in that I grew up reading fantasy novels and science fiction books and things like that. They pretty much saved my life when I was growing up. It's a characteristic that I share with the main character of this book.
Saved your life in the sense of it gave you an escape from the everyday, like that?
Yes, absolutely. And, taught me a lot about ethics and morality in a way that I was not getting in my home, my actual home.
Interesting.
So, books are just, the most important thing. But I didn't actually start writing till I was in my late 20s. So I didn't have that immediate jump to writing like a lot of other people did. So I read, and then eventually it occurred to me that I could do it myself. It just never really occurred to me before then. So
yeah. And did you start with short stories, or?
I did. I read something somewhere. This is kind of before the internet was a big thing when I started writing, because I'm a little bit old. So I read somewhere that you should start with short stories because that's the best place to learn. You can experiment with form and all that. And so I did, even though I didn't really like reading short stories at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did that for a long time, maybe 10 or 15 years. At least 10 years, I just wrote short stories and studied them and did that and submitted to all the science fiction, fantasy markets, all that stuff. Yeah. And then eventually got around to realizing I could actually write novels of the sort that I enjoyed reading as a kid.
That's amazing. Okay, we have a couple of comments, and one of them is going to go to that question. So we've got 3 here. The Sims family says, "Hi, looking forward to hearing about this book. Interested for my 13-year-old granddaughter," who it would be great for, by the way. Totally appropriate for that age. Jonathan Bronico says, "Hi, Matt and Jenn. Keep up the good work." Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
That's nice. And then the Scales family wants to know what were your favorite books when you were young? What were the books you were enjoying?
Sure. Well, I really loved Newbery books. I was in a program in my middle grade school that I could skip English class and go to the library as long as I read Newbery books.
Huh.
Just Newbery books. So I read every one of them, pretty much, that I could get my hands on. My favorite of all time is probably The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin.
Oh, my 17-year-old, that's one of her favorite books.
I reread that book all the time. I still find it to be a masterpiece. I love it. And this is I'm also a graphic designer, and Ellen Raskin, the author of that book, was also an artist and graphic designer. Really? Yeah, she actually designed the cover of the Wrinkle in Time, the famous cover of that with the concentric circles on it.
Yeah.
She designed that. So she's both an incredibly talented designer and an author, and I've always admired that and respected it. So
that's amazing.
That's probably one of my favorites. Yeah.
Wow.
From that time.
Wow. Tell us, okay, so tell us a little bit about A Game of Fox and Squirrels, a book which I just adored. I was amazed by it. Where did it come from and what is it about?
Well, thank you for asking, and thanks for saying nice things about it.
Oh, I love it.
So it's on the base level, it's about a girl, Samantha, who comes to Oregon to stay with an aunt that she has never met before because there's been an incident at her house. There's a domestic violence incident, and she and her sister have been taken by protective services and moved to this relatives. So Samantha does not want to be in Oregon at all. She just wants to go back to her family. This is, she just wants things to go back to the way they were. And when a magical card game sort of comes to life, the Fox character in particular comes to life and offers her the chance to go back home if she goes on a quest for him. She takes it and she becomes involved in this increasingly sort of dangerous and interesting game in order to get what she wants and go back home.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, boy, I don't know what to say. I will say this, so the Fox is this character that is charming and wonderful and likable and just trying to help and also terrifying at different times. If you just imagine a fox in a relationship with squirrels, that's part of what we're seeing, right? There's this like playfulness and then the scary moments. And the night I finished reading it, so I read it in 2 days. I read half of it the first day, half the second. I had hurt my shoulder, so I'm going to be sleeping on the couch by myself, and it's dark, and I had just finished, and I turned out the lights, and I was like, I'm scared of foxes now. I was like, I don't want a fox to come in the house, which is really, I think there's not that much scary about an actual fox. I don't think when I've seen them. But yeah, I think it's just a testimony to your amazing writing. Like, I was like, oh, wow. I was a little creeped out. I love, can you talk a little bit about, now there's a long tradition of middle grade and young adult novels dealing with really difficult topics, sometimes more difficult than what adult novels deal with. And I feel like you walked that line so well in this book that you're dealing with issues of domestic abuse and violence in a young girl's life in a way that I felt like was just not just appropriate, but like even instructive. Like, here's how you can deal with these things if you're a young person. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was probably the biggest challenge of the book, is talking about this subject. It's also a subject that's really personal to me. I grew up in a house that had violence in it. So figuring out what normal is and how to portray that to people who haven't experienced it was really hard. The first draft of the book, I had a lot more flashbacks in it. And some explicit scenes and things like that. And my editor very rightly said, we don't need these. I really didn't want the book itself to be traumatizing. I really want the book to be about the healing process that comes after you have escaped a situation that's hard. So I really didn't want it to be as harrowing as that. So honestly, it really took a lot of first readers, and it took a lot of my editors, helping me figure out where to find the line to walk between that. Because when she first bought the book from me, she said, "What is the one thing about the book that you don't want to change during revision?" And I said, "I do not want to change the ending." I said, "This book has to be about hope, and it has to end in this place of love. And you have to finish the book feeling better, about everything."
Yeah. And that's funny. Even the night that I was like scared about the fox, in my way, I was like, the whole point of this book is that there is safety in the relationships we build around us in family and friends. And I'm very rich in that. And I felt at ease. I feel like the philosophy of your book, I feel like there was a lot of wisdom in it, I think is what I'm getting at. And I felt comforted by that too.
That's good. That's years of therapy at work.
Hey, well, I got it quite cheap then. The book is very inexpensive compared to years of therapy. Let's see, a couple comments here. Kirk Quinlivan is here from the Dalles. He says hello.
Right. Neighbor.
And he says it is so valuable and wise to walk the line, talking about what we were just talking about, I think. Mm-hmm. Lily Me says, well, the fox scares me already. Good, good. Which actually makes me laugh. The Scales family says, we love her shirt, which let's give everybody a closer look. There is the
I just want to point out, this is the author who did the cover. So this is Jessica Rue, and she's an incredible artist. Just fabulous.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, she has many shops where you can buy note cards and T-shirts and everything. And honestly, I've been. If she had a kid, I'm putting them through college right now because I keep going to her website and buying more things.
That's funny. Oh, that's great. Let's see. Here's a question from the Scales family. What character from this book is most like you, and do you have a favorite character?
Let's see. Well, I think for a lot of writers, we put ourselves into a lot of our characters. And so for me, there's 3 characters in this book I feel like I put myself in the most. Okay. And that's the main characters in this family. It's Samantha, the main character, who most closely mirrors the sort of my experience growing up of how I reacted to, a family situation like that. Yeah. And then her sister Caitlin is reacts by being like sort of the good kid. So she's the one who sort of heads off any domestic problems by being super perfect and by pleasing all the adults in her life. So she instead of reacting and sort of becoming invisible, Caitlin just sort of meets it head on and tries to diffuse a situation before it even starts. Yeah. And that's a skill that many of us learn when we have those family situations. And then there's the aunt that they come to stay with, who is an adult who has lived through that as a child and has now gotten better, and is working through it. She still has issues because they never really leave, but she's like, she's come to a better place. She's broken the cycle for herself. And so it was, I really enjoyed just sort of getting to write like life phases, the phases of how one might deal with this sort of situation as we went through. So I feel like, I couldn't pick a favorite between all 3 of them. Honestly, like I'm sure that every author says that too, don't they? I don't know.
Sometimes. One thing I loved, I loved that there were these like kind of different windows into people dealing with the same thing at different times and in different ways. And even the fear about what does this mean about who I am or who I'll become. And I thought you just did a masterful job with Samantha meets a young boy from the neighborhood, like a kid who lives nearby. And even the effect is she's learning how to build a new friendship and navigating an old friendship from someone she had to leave behind back home. Like, tell me a little bit about how you was he always part of the plan? Was he always part of the story that she had this friend that came in? Was
yes,
I feel like it revealed a lot about her character, her interactions with him.
Yeah, one of the insidious things about domestic violence in most cases is that it's isolating. So you're not really allowed to have close friends. The abusive parent often makes sure that no one in the family gets too close with anyone else. So part of her healing process when she comes to Oregon is now understanding what this means, that she can have a friend that no one's going to take away, that she's encouraged to be with, that she's encouraged to go close to.
Yeah.
And, that he's not perfect either, so right. No one is perfect in the book. And I think making everyone messy is kind of one of my MOs. I think people are always messy, and that's what makes us beautiful and complicated and sometimes impossible to live with. But, there it is. So yeah, I always wanted her to have, and I wanted to have some male characters, since both of both of Samantha's aunts are women. I wanted there to be some positive boys, in the story to make sure. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And and you did a great job of it. They're also unique and they have their own kind of foibles and issues all kind of crashing against each other in the
Mhm.
midst of this. So folks, if you're watching at home live and you have questions, feel free to just, whether you put them on YouTube or Facebook, we can see them here, and Jenn will be glad to answer your questions. I have like 100 more. So if you don't have any, that's fine. One thing I did want to ask you about, Jenn, so this is a fantasy. We have talking fox, talking squirrels. I couldn't help but feel also that it had a lot in common with magical realism. Like there were places where I was like, this isn't a fantasy. This is a magical world that just exists because it's real life. And then even moments where I was like, you could almost read it as like the magic isn't even there. Yeah, which is a lot of complicated stuff going on in a fantasy novel for middle grade kids, I felt like. So was that purposeful? Did you set out to make it feel like the real world, even though it's magical? Like what were you?
Yeah, I don't use the phrase magical realism for myself because that's culturally tied to a culture I don't belong to.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for me, yes, I wanted it to work entirely as metaphor, entirely as fantasy, and then my editor was the person who kept telling me crash them together. Like,
okay,
she wanted more blurring, and that's one of the great things about writing for this age group is as adults, we're sort of constantly trying to figure things out. We're trying to say, is this working? Is this this? Is this? We have rules of reading that we apply to everything that we read.
Right.
But younger readers don't do that. Like they haven't been exposed to all of those rules. And so you have the freedom to ignore all of the rules. Just make up your own, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I needed my editor to sort of remind me of that and encourage me to push that. And it's really, really, really changed the way I'm viewing my future projects as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Kids that age a lot of times don't even apply those rules in everyday life, let alone when they're reading. And I think that came across in your novel too, these moments where Samantha, I'm like, okay, Samantha, do you understand how this works? Like, I know you don't understand how some things work, but like, and that actually, for me as an adult, actually introduced crisis sometimes where I was like, oh no. Okay, we have another question here. Let's see. Jonathan wants to know, he says, Jenn, what was your path to publishing? What did you do after you decided to move from short stories to novels?
Wrote novels. Let's say, yeah.
That's the first step.
Yeah. And, honestly, it was really hard. I think I had a stack of abandoned first chapters, I think, like most of us do. And then I set myself the goal of writing a romance novel first. And because I was really into martial arts at the time, it was a kung fu romance, which was
interesting,
relatively unsaleable to anyone. But like doing something that I loved enabled me to actually, write the whole thing. And then after that, I worked on Above World, which was my first published middle grade book. And I worked on that for a couple of years, got a lot of feedback, and then just did the standard route where I queried, put together a query letter, sent it out to agents, and did that whole dance. And then I got an agent. Yeah, I'm on my third agent since then.
Oh wow!
So, yeah.
You're with a great agency now.
They're fantastic. So yeah, it's just I think I pretty much played it by the book in terms of just doing the work of collecting my rejections. I have hundreds of rejections.
Yeah. So here's a question that is coming from me not doing a good job preparing our people here. Kirk asks, is there an age group you were targeting? Pardon my ignorance of what middle grade means.
Oh, no worries on that. Middle grade is usually the 8 to 12 or the 10 to 14 age range. And separate from YA, which is often like 12 to 18 or 12 and up usually. So there's a lot of overlap. A lot of it depends on the maturity of the reader, but mostly it's just where is Barnes and Noble going to shelf it? That's pretty much like the defining factor.
Yeah, so, and Samantha's what, 11, I think.
She is 11, which is like a very standard middle grade audience. It's the same age that Harry Potter was in the first Harry Potter book. So I usually tell people the first 3 Harry Potters are middle grade, the last 4 are YA. That's, if you've read that
Yeah.
series.
And I would say if you're a parent and you're not sure if this is a good fit for your kids, it's an easy, quick read. It's compelling as an adult. I was never like, oh, there's a middle grade book. I mean, I like middle grade books, so I think I wouldn't have said that, but it's a great book just on its own. Right? I think it's a good book for adults. And there's nothing objectionable in the content, and the stuff about domestic violence is dealt with such a light touch, so tenderly. I had no question about what had happened, but like Jenn was saying, I didn't feel like there was trauma or like a picture of something that was going to stick with me at all. Like it's really carefully well done. So I think that's. Kirk also wants to say, please self-publish your Kung Fu romance. It sounds awesome.
Kirk, I will send you a link to something later.
Oh, Kirk's gonna be so excited. My kids and I, my older daughters and I, just watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon this week. They had never seen it. My family lived in Asia for a few years, so we speak Chinese. So it was really fun. They had never watched it, but it has some of those aspects in there. Mm-hmm. Hey, for everyone at home, just a reminder, I don't think I've said this today yet. I always, when we have a guest, buy a copy of their book to send to one person, a little contest. And what I do is in the first half week or so after this posts, if you comment, if you like, if you share, every time you do, that just goes into I put all of your names in there. I do a number, like random number thing, and then I'll reach out to you and get your address if you're the one that wins. So feel free to just leave comments that are nonsensical to get you more entries. That's fine. We don't mind. It's totally fine. Jenn, what are you working on now? What are you moving on to from this?
Well, nothing has been announced yet, but let's just say I am working on a book that has a lot of talking birds in it next. It's got a magical bird kingdom.
Ooh, I love talking birds.
I love birds, and just any excuse. Now I have like for work, I can buy anything that has a bird on it that I want. And since I live in Portland, that is everything. Everything has a bird. Yeah. So I'm working on that, and we'll see how that goes. That is the first draft is due in July, and I have maybe 1/10 of it written. So no problem, no problem.
That's what my third book in my trilogy. The manuscript is due on the 1st of June, and I'm about halfway, and so I've reached that point of like, well, I guess I can't cheat on my word count every day anymore. Like I have to meet it or I will fail my deadline. It's bad.
So you go with the word count deadline or?
Yeah. So what I do is I look at when my deadline is and then I chop it up. I just do the math to what I think my word count will roughly be. Mm-hmm. And then I do a daily word count Monday through Friday with Saturday as my catch up day if I need it.
Gotcha.
Which I often do because I don't always hit my word count. What do you do? What do you have a time set aside or?
Yeah, right now, who knows? But I'm a freelance graphic designer, so I often will have that has to come first because that often pays the bills in a more immediate way. So I will work on that as needed. So my schedule changes like almost every day. In the perfect world, I get up and I'm writing from about 9 to noon. Those are my most useful hours in terms of writing. And in the afternoon, I'm better at administration and other things. And I'm not a nighttime writer really.
Oh, I literally today was writing while I was waiting for my daughter. I was sitting in a car and I just fell asleep. That warm car felt so nice. And then I was like, what have I done? Now when am I going to do this? One thing I did want to ask you about, Jenn, if this is okay, tell me if it's not.
Absolutely.
Your book came out right as kind of social distancing. Everyone's going home. You had events planned that all got canceled. Like, what has that experience been like? What is going on there?
It's been mostly awful, I would say.
Okay, fair enough.
Just to get into a little publishing, neepery for you. So a lot of bookstores are doing great right now. A lot of people are reading, a lot of people are buying books, and a lot of indie stores are doing great, and I'm thrilled for that. But what people are buying are the authors and the books they already know about.
Right.
So the people who are the most hurt are people like me. I haven't had a new book published in 4 or 5 years, and I was never a big name before then. So people aren't calling up and asking for my new book, so it's the midless people, and the, who are mostly getting hurt like this. So you can't walk into a Barnes and Noble or to another store and see my book on the shelf under new releases. So most people are just never going to know that these books are coming out now.
Right.
So that's disheartening. This is obviously a book of my heart. It's something that it's probably the most important thing maybe I'll ever write.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I know it's a weird thing to think about, but so it's been a lot of grieving, actually, for what might have been for this book. I'm not giving up on it, obviously. And middle grade is great because we have a long tail in publishing. So people will find things over a longer amount of time than they would for adult books. So I'm still hopeful that it will find an audience later on, but it's disheartening to start out like a new phase of my career in this way.
Yeah, for sure. Here's an endorsement. Ann Nesbitt says, it's such a wonderful, wonderful book. Everyone should grab a copy of Game of Fox and Squirrels.
Yes. Ann Nesbitt is an amazing author, and she's written something called Daring Darlene, and it came out on the same day as my book. And so we have been sharing and commiserating and trying to help each other out. And the funny thing is I met Ann 8 years ago. We both launched our debut middle grade books the same time.
Oh, wow. And reach out to Jenn and have her put us in touch, and you can come hang out with us and tell us about your book too. We'd love to have you on if you're up for that. Let's see. A couple other comments. Lily Me wants to know if that means an extra entry for each comment. Yes, that's what it means. Go ahead. Talk about whatever you like. Just use this as your place to express yourself. The Scales family, Sarah says, we really enjoy the middle grade genre as a family, even my teenagers and myself. There are so many amazing books. I think that's really true. I think there are a lot of really important middle grade books that I feel like, well, I kind of implied this earlier. I think there are some of them that deal with really difficult issues better than adult books do.
Yeah. Can I say something about that real quick?
Yeah, please do.
I often say that one of the biggest ways, biggest things you have to change as a writer when you're writing middle grade from, like, say, adult, is that everything you do has to be intentional. I think when you say Game of Thrones, people are being beheaded and killed left and right. Lots of bad things can happen. Right. But when you do middle grade, you really have to think about the implications of what you're doing. You're not trying to teach anything necessarily, but you do have to be aware of what you're doing, like on a sentence level by sentence level. Like, what am I saying by this? Why am I doing this thing? So I do think it can create. I think that's one of the reasons for me that middle grade books have stuck with me for my whole life. This is sort of like really, really intentional purpose to them that is not always there in adult. It often is there in adult books. I don't want to say it's not, but
well, it's not always there in middle grade either, right? But in the best middle grade, it definitely is. Okay, Anne has another comment for us. She says, "Thank you, Matt. Seriously, though, when Jenn says this is the book of her heart, she is speaking the truth. I think it's a book that will speak to many hearts." I think that's true. I agree with that.
Thank you, Anne. She's the sweetest.
Let's see. Oh, Kirk wants to know if this book is available in Spanish at this time.
I wish, Kirk. I wish. But here's the thing. Like, all of the international book festivals got canceled.
Oh, right. So,
like, all the places where my foreign rights agent would have gone to try to sell foreign rights for the book were all canceled. So far, we have no foreign sales. So I would love to see. I've never had a book translated into another language. I don't know if you have, Matt.
One of my books is in Portuguese, and it's so funny. I get notes from Brazil every once in a while, and I write back to them using Google Translate, which is hilarious for both parties. So yeah. The Scales family wants to know if you've read any Gary D. Schmidt. They say your book reminds us of his books in dealing with hard topics, though not usually fantasy. He's one of our favorites.
The name is familiar, but I don't think I've read anything.
I haven't either. Scales family, send us the title of your favorite so we can look it up.
Absolutely.
And Kirk has expressed his displeasure with a crying face, crying emoji. Jen, tell us, we're at half an hour, so I don't want to keep you forever. Tell us where, obviously JennReese.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there and get connected. Where else are you on the internet?
Well, I would like to point out my publisher has a website, Game of Fox Squirrels.com.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And they've got a discussion guide on there, which is really, really great. And then there's also, there's a card game that figures it, the magical card game in this book. I have little excerpts of it throughout here, but then I actually went ahead and made rules for the card game. And those are online, like in a printable PDF that are downloadable from that site as well. So
that's awesome. I
love card games and board games, and I really, really had fun designing one for this. So
that's a game of foxandsquirrels.com.
Yep.
You can go there. That would be awesome. The card game actually is pretty important in a variety of ways in the book. So that's really fun that you can actually play it. I love that. Okay. We are going to wrap up. If you got one more question, we can take it. In the meantime, don't forget to like or comment. That'll get you an entry. You can also subscribe if you want to make sure to hear who we're having on in the future. Like next week, we're having Morgan Busey, which was Kirk's request. Actually, Morgan's going to be with us. And on YouTube, so that's youtube.com/Matt Mikalatos Books. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/Mikalatos Books. I do make you have to learn to spell my name, which is cruel, but there you go. Okay, so let's see. We are told that Okay for Now is a great book by Gary Schmidt. And here's some of his others: Orbiting Jupiter, Lizzie Bright, and Buckminster Boy. Okay, I'll check those out.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Lily Mead's excited that there's a real game. Yeah, go get it. And Kirk says, woohoo. I assume because of Morgan coming. So that's fun. Well, Jen, it has been so fun to have you. You guys, let me just say again, this is an amazing book, and you will enjoy it for sure. If you pick it up, it's available wherever you buy books, and you can get it on ebook or hardcover. The hardcover is beautiful, though. I'm telling you, this is the way you want to buy it. I love it. As an artifact, it's great. And if you don't read it right away, I love the foil on it. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, and a couple illustrations throughout. And even, okay, I got to show you guys this too. Like, look at the beginning of the chapter there with the little fox running. Like, I don't want to give you any spoilers though. Okay, good. There's a fox in that chapter. That's a spoiler. All right, friends. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Oh no, there's a whole bunch more comments coming in just a sec. Kirk says, I can't wait to read this book. I'm buying it today. The Scales say, Okay for Now is our favorite. Back to Anne. Oh, that was Anne that made that comment.
Yeah.
About Okay for Now. Okay, I missed that. Beth, so this is my friend. I call her Dr. Awesome. She says, I really can't get over how pretty the cover is. And Kate says, it's a gorgeous book. Kate, are you an author too? I see you got a book.
She just had a book come out this week,
Kate,
too. So.
All right. All of you authors watching, if you had a book come out during quarantine, send me a note and we'll introduce you to the gang here. So, Jen, thanks so much. Such a pleasure.
Thanks so much. This is so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was great. Friends, be safe at home. If you need something, don't hesitate to reach out. Take care of yourselves. Don't touch your face. Keep 6 feet of distance. All those things. And we'll talk to you soon.